let's get you caught up on what has happened so far. The Oakland Athletics have basically taken over Major League Baseball.
They are now officially good and stuff.
They are good and stuff. They got Jon Lester, Johnny Gomes from the Boston Red Sox for Yoenis Cespedes, a deal that I like for both teams.
They also get a pick, by the way.
And they get a pick.
Yeah.
They also sent Tommy Malone to the Minnesota Twins, and in return for Sam Fulton, probably looking at Fulton and Gomes in some sort of, I don't know, platoon, or at least Fulton's a bench guy. Fulton's a bench guy. Platoonish situation.
A speedy, good defensive outfielder. But they've got this kid, Billy Burns, who I think they're going to give that left field job to.
So they're loaded for bear. And credit Billy Beane, as we often see in baseball, the guy who makes the first move early generally sets things up for himself. And we saw that with Samardzija and Jason Hamill. Hamill's not been real good for Oakland since he's been there.
It's quite an understatement.
He sucked, since he's been there. But the good thing is he's now effectively their fifth starter.
Yeah, and they don't even, I guess so. I mean, he's a guy they can drop from a rotation in the playoffs, and he wasn't that good anyway.
No, he was in
the Cubs, but he was not good in the American League, and it's shown.
No, he's a guy that can.
It's too bad it's not 10 years ago where you could throw your starters on 3 days rest in the playoffs. Because if Oakland would just go Gray, Lester, Samardzija, that would be that's.
And they still have Kazmir and Hamill, and I'm entirely convinced that Billy Beane is not done yet because, as I've been telling everybody, when they made that deal with Chicago for Samardzija and Jason Hamill, a guy I know, a scout for the Cubs, said Billy's going to turn around and do a couple more things here. Now, he's done a couple more, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they make another move.
Well, he has to get a hitter, you would think.
A hitter. Or as Mike said, they could turn it over. They could turn it over to the kid.
Yeah, it's a pretty big spot out of their lineup, though.
It is a big, but you know what? It's not as big as I thought it was, and I still shake my head that that's the return that they get for Cespedes. But Cespedes is hitting .256 with a .303 on base this year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's hitting home runs, but he's really not doing much else.
I would think it'd be more of a presence in your lineup. That's hard to find.
Guy.
I mean, you have to, instead of having three guys, now you only have two with Donaldson and Moss to pitch around. And then, when you need runs, gets closer to playoff time, and then when they do get in the playoffs, well, it seems like they're going to. Where do they get it from? That's the question.
Well, I think the thing from Boston's point of view, I like the Cespedes pickup. I mean, I want to see that swing at Fenway Park. It'd be a lot easier.
Do you think it's likelier that he hits 40 homers or 80 doubles?
Boy, that's a good question. Probably 80 doubles.
Yeah, because he's in ram line drives.
No, probably 80.
Wall.
Probably 80 doubles. And the thing at Boston, I think we've seen this year. One of the things, Boston's got some young athletic guys. I mean, they've got Bogarts, they've got Holt, they've got some guys. I'm not a big fan of Jackie Bradley Jr., but they've got some guys that you can put a nice young team together on. But they need somebody to replace Big Papi as the middle of the order guy. Now, Cespedes isn't necessarily the guy. But I think Cespedes helps you. I think Cespedes helps you offensively. No, they'll re-sign Cespedes.
You think?
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely.
So they're going to bring Lester back. We all think they're going to bring Lester back, right?
You know what?
Get a pick. They get Cespedes.
I'm not entirely certain. Everything you hear from the Boston writers is that John Henry has basically said, we're not going 5 or 6 years on pitchers over 30. And
smart.
It is smart. It's entirely possible. Maybe Lester goes away, comes back on a 4 or 5 year deal, and they suck it up. But it's an interesting scenario. It's an interesting scenario to say the least. And I think it's pretty obvious that one of the guiding principles behind what Boston was doing with Lester, they were not going to trade him to a team that was a surefire bet to re-sign him. He wasn't going to L.A., where L.A. would probably just get it done. Probably wasn't going to St. Louis, where they would get it done. Instead, you trade him to Oakland, you get something in return, and you've got a chance of at least taking a shot at him in the open market.
Well, I think it gets back to the Tampa Bay thing. They've been talking about David Price for how long? And now that they're somewhat back in it, I think it gets to me, it sounds, how hard is it to go out and get a number one guy? That's hard to do. I mean, look at the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have been trying to do it for a while. Mm-hmm. It's hard to go out and get that number one guy that you can rely on every 5 days. And if Jon Lester's the guy for the Red Sox, sometimes you have to pay the guy that means the most to you, and then everybody else fills in all the other spots. And it's just like we're seeing it here with Batista. How much does Batista mean to the Jays? Everything. What do you do to make him happy? Whatever it takes. And I think that's what you're going to see with the Red Sox. Who's it going to be? That's the question. But it's real hard to just go out and find a number one guy and not pay him.
If you could put yourself in not necessarily in Jon Lester's head, but in the head of a guy in that situation. You've been with a team your whole career. You've won a World Series with them. Everybody loves you. You're an icon in that city, and you expected to be there for your entire career. They trade you, but they've already talked to you and said, we want you back and all that stuff. Would you be inclined to, when you go to this new team and, it's going to be 2 months, how wonderful could it possibly be to erase all the last 8 years with the other team in the other city that would make you sign an extension before you put yourself back on the market to give that old team another shot?
Well, to me, I don't think you'd be in too big of a hurry. I mean, you're going to play the market, and if Oakland is where you would like to be and your family likes to be there, because he's at that point in his career where it has to be a family decision. It has to be, my wife, my children like Oakland.
Right, because you're going to make a ton of dough wherever you
go. Exactly. That's my answer. What's really the difference when you start making 3-digit money? What's the difference in 3 digits and then adding another 15 to it? Not a whole lot. The other 15 just means you're happy at where you're at. Mm-hmm. And when you get certain parts of your career, and he's at it, where he can really, coming up here, he can pick and choose where he wants to go. If it's the Red Sox, I would just have a problem with somebody that has given so much to one team, and it's real easy for them not to either pay you or get rid of you. If I'm a player, I have a sort of problem with that, and I think you may see that with Jon. He's going to, like I said, he's going to go to wherever the best place is for his family, but I don't know if he's going to be standing in line to go back to the Red Sox.